What does traditional art school teach you? It's teaching you how to learn techniques and grading you on your ability to mimic those techniques, right? On another level, traditional art school seems to teach you how to be a part of a creative system. You learn these skills, you get these grades, you get these accolades, certifications, degrees, diplomas, and then it allows you to enter the formal system. It allows you or helps you have a place to apply the shit that you've learned. Arguably, depending on how you come into being a creative person or artist, I feel like art school is an early entry point to that system. The professors oftentimes are the ones who are the professionals running the art world or art system that you might find yourself in. I would say the parts that seem to be worthwhile is the routine structure of being challenged to create on call. You know, I think the assignments, repetitive nature of the assignments, I think the learning and developing yourself around whatever techniques. I think being forced to be critiqued are very strong situations for artists to find themselves in creatively in a formal structure. The lack of freedom that you have in a formal art education situation has its benefits. There's things you can take from it. It's things you can pull away. Then it's a whole lot of shit that it seems like at some point you, on your natural pursuit to become yourself, you seem to strip those things away. Or you wind up being somebody who's having a hard time stripping those things away and becoming themselves, becoming the artist that is inside of them to be. I don't think traditional art school is kind of helping you be able to grapple with the who am I question. Because it seems like expectation when you're in a formal learning situation is that information is put in front of you, and your ability to be able to memorize, mimic, articulate that information that was put in front of you becomes your grading. That becomes the deciding factor whether you're good or not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't think you are being challenged to be yourself or think outside the box. And maybe this is something that we naturally do, is we're trying to get the right answer because we're in a classroom structure that says there's a right and wrong answer. Even if the classroom says there is no right or wrong answer, we're still trying to figure out what the right answer is to get the grade that validates what we know and what we understand and how good or bad we are at something. Somebody freshly out of high school who hasn't mastered technique, would I recommend them go to college? I would recommend anybody to go to college for a formal art education if one of the primary things they feel like they need is structure. Because I feel like that's the most beneficial part, is the structure. Because I feel like if you can develop a routine and an obsession of starting and completing projects or assignments to the point that when you're no longer a part of that system, it's built the muscle memory, desire to continue to start and finish projects, I think it's the perfect thing for people to do. But if the expectation is that paying the money and going to the school will turn you into an artist, then I don't feel like that's the best scenario. If you think that you can learn to become an artist, I think you can learn techniques and skills and be challenged personally, mentally, and emotionally. And those challenges actually help you become an artist, but not school itself.
Yeah.
My goal going to college was to get away from my routine life and environment. You know, I definitely had it in my head that it was like, so what is it? Dead, in jail, in college, or military, or work. And I felt like I was too much of a student to do anything other than go to college. And I felt like it made it easy for me it just became an easy excuse and reason for me to get away. So I could figure out whatever the fuck I was supposed to be figuring out. Because I didn't really know what that was. I felt like I needed I could create an opportunity for myself to buy time. Was my goal.
What doesn't traditional art school teach you?
Well, the number one thing I feel like don't teach you how to survive. I think about when I was in school and what everybody else seemed to be struggling with. I recognized that I didn't struggle with it. And I recognized that the people around me recognized that I wasn't struggling with these same trials and tribulations that to me felt small.
Like what?
Not having enough money for something.
Oh.
Or figuring out a way to get money to solve whatever financial problem. I felt like when I got to college, I feel like my experience in college was very easy in terms of me being on my own for the first time in my life, having to take care of myself. That wasn't hard. And I could argue that I wasn't experiencing being alone, taking care of myself for the first time in my life when I got to college. I feel like I had already been put in situations, intentional or accidental, where I needed to rise to the occasion of taking care of myself or being responsible for myself. It wasn't new to me. And that seemed to be fucking with people. So it's not teaching you responsibility. So maybe those assignments that you get every week that's forcing you to create, they aren't helping you become responsible to create and make stuff on your own. Maybe some people get dependent on that and struggle without it. Problems I faced in college was figuring out who I was.
That's that.
I recognized that I wasn't aware of who I was when I was in college. I didn't know how I saw myself. And the experiences that I was having in and out of the class, it was revealing it to me. I didn't really have to focus on being stressed out because I couldn't get books. Because I knew the dude at the bookstore and I cut his hair and he had a whole system of how he steals them and gives them to you, or you buy them for less than half price. I got to college and figured out how to connect to the system that would support my experience. So I'm not worried about what the kids in my classes are worried about. I'm trying to figure out why I keep getting a low grade on my concepts.
Right.
You know, that challenged me. My problems were internal. I felt like I got skipped a grade or something. Like I got there and I was already on the next level of what you need to figure out as a person or something.
And then, so it doesn't teach you survival. It's not teaching you
responsibility. I'm just thinking about all the conversations that I'm finding myself in with people, and people are drawn to me and people come to me, and it's been like that my whole life. And somehow people believe that I understand something that they don't understand, or I see something that they don't see. And for us to kind of unpack what those things are helps me see the things that art school didn't teach me. It doesn't teach you how to figure shit out. But on the flip side, creating a problem for yourself and having to have a creative response to it, and then being able to measure what you produced, is you learning how to figure things out. I just don't feel like it's teaching you that. I feel like if you aren't blinded or confused by surface level problems, then you're able to take away and learn really from anything. But you're able to take away and you're able to learn how making art is teaching you how to figure anything out. If you learn that you just take the same routine and apply it in other areas of your life. It's like somebody said to me, be as creative with life as you are with all of the stuff that you're making. Be just as creative. The very direct professors were always my favorite. I probably wasn't seeing it at the time that they were being uncut. Not like I didn't have an experience where somebody was like so real and honest with me where I'm like, oh, that shit changed my life. But it's kind of like the three people that I picture from college, they were all direct. And I appreciate direct because even growing up as the quiet kid and then being quiet in class, I was always quiet because I always thought what I was thinking was too much to say. Because people seem not to be able to handle somebody being honest and direct. That's one thing art schools don't teach you is self-validation or not to need validation. Because that's definitely high on the list when I'm in these conversations like, oh, you're looking for a compliment. Your entry point in your interaction with me is trying to deliver a compliment. I'm just looking at how people are using compliments to me and looking for compliments from me. I'm still in it. I've always been in it. The fact that I ain't quit. So yeah.
And it's
school ain't teaching you not to quit.
I was gonna say
I think school becomes a perfect excuse or reason to quit. I think it's the perfect way to stop, perfect place to stop. And I thought this when I was younger. I was scared to be a teacher because I feel like my teachers communicated something to me that made me feel like they stopped making art or stopped pursuing who they are. It seems to me that school, I don't know if it's teaching you to quit, but I think it's making it okay for you to stop.
It could be
detrimental.
Yeah.
I think it's teaching artists that there's one way to do this. So you're taking somebody who naturally is in search of an infinite amount of possibilities to any situation, and they're being taught that this is the way to do it. I think it's for everybody who enters the system.
Okay.
You know, I think if we just look at it as a whole and the whole education system, I think it's constructed to produce a specific product, and that product being the adult that comes out, that gets spit out of it to play a role within whatever area of the system they are interested in or find themselves participating in. I think it's very assembly line, robot, and I feel like on that assembly line and the robots that are getting created, everybody finds a place to, the way I see it, they find a place to die. Everybody is hiding somewhere, and the disguise is the mask of whatever the system they went through produced. That's what I always casually say. Everybody looking for somewhere to hide. I think depending on what it is you want, and I think depending on what it is you believe or feel that you're supposed to be doing, I think it's a win if that's what's happening. I feel like the only loss is when you're experiencing not being yourself. If you being yourself and you find yourself fitting into some area of the system that allows you to be yourself, your full self, it seems like that's a win to me. What I learned from my personal experience is that no such place exists for me because I went in search of it. And when I found me, I realized what parts of myself I would have to give up in order to exist, which was a very hard thing for me to accept. The idea that I did everything that I was supposed to do based on what the system requires, and there's no place for me, or I can't be myself. And once I started to accept that is when I started to recognize myself as an artist. If somebody comes to Uncut Art School, what they're going to be given is a very small introduction that becomes a roadmap of like the exploration of self, and it's like, and how to figure shit out for yourself. That's what I be trying to give people, is I be trying to give them something to help them unlock the ability to figure some shit out for themselves on their own. by themselves. Well, because you find yourself through the making of the work. You're a creative person, you're an artist, you got a way that you want to express yourself, always express yourself, think you may be interested in expressing yourself. The finding of the self is through the expression. You need it outside of you and in front of you to where you can see yourself. We trying to figure out who we are. The best thing we can do is be able to look at something that represents us. No, everybody around me, ain't nobody ready. Everybody that's around me who got access to me is it revealing that they're not ready to face who they are? Yes, but you're never ready to face who you are. See, I think the people are confusing themselves because they are approaching trying to understand who they are based on being ready. And they're disguising trying to figure out who they are with wanting to be an artist. And the reality is you don't have to be ready. You don't know if you're ready or not until you're thrusted into any situation or any circumstance. You learn whether you're ready. You don't decide whether you're ready. So if you got a list of excuses, Uncut Art School becomes one excuse that you could check off. Anyone who has access to what we're talking about and what we're doing creatively and what we're trying to figure out with ourselves and make art that illustrates it does not have the excuse that they have no one and that this information is buried and hidden. Right. What you got to do is what you already been doing, which is being honest with yourself and then challenging yourself. That's what you do. You scared of being who you are. And you done got addicted and attached to all of the excuses that you have learned to make associated with who you are, which makes it easy for you to hide. But it's uncomfortable for you hiding. Is why who you really are comes out when you can't control it. And you excited when it happens. You know what I'm saying?
So back on track. Mistakes. If there are any mistakes that you feel like you've made sort of like along this journey, can you talk to me about, did you make any mistakes in college?
I made all kinds of mistakes. One of the biggest mistakes was I went into school feeling like nobody could teach me. I already knew what it was because I knew the technical information. So what am I here for? What am I here for? What am I supposed to be learning if y'all teaching the shit that I already know? Because in my mind, knowing how to use my hands with the tools and the techniques was what it was all about. So that was an early mistake. Other mistake I would say that I made is I was learning to see myself as one way. I was trying to see myself as a photographer. That was a mistake.
And that was back then. That wasn't true. You wasn't just a photographer.
No, I took fucking as many drawing classes as I did photography classes. I took as many sculpture classes as I did painting classes. I had to fill my schedule up with classes, and I can't say that the classes that I took was only photography. I took a lot of philosophy classes, psychology classes. I was revealing to myself who I am, even though I was rejecting what the fuck I was seeing, or I didn't know how to see parts of myself.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So that was a mistake, is I wasn't as open-minded as I would go back and do it. I didn't explore to the magnitude that I could have in hindsight. I did it again, I would have been all the way there. And I wasn't. I was there not to have something happen to me that wasn't going to happen to me. I didn't know that it wasn't laid out for me not to be dead in jail and all that kind of shit, because I didn't understand how to dodge it. So I just thought college was my way of dodging it. I thought art was my way of dodging racism, literally. I was kind of approaching things with the understanding of what I didn't want. I didn't have a list of what I did want. I hadn't really thought about it. I didn't graduate. I left. And it's interesting because I go back and forth with how I'm feeling about leaving with 7 credit hours. I was scared that I would have the option to do some shit that I didn't want to do if I had a degree. I was terrified of that. because I felt like that's what I was watching along my along my journey. It's people who let money be the guiding light of how they move, and money created a destination for them. So a choice that I made that I would probably make the same exact choice feels like a mistake. But 20 years out of school, it feels like the smartest thing that I could have did. It would have changed my trajectory in ways that were monetary. And I don't know that I would have came out with this level of an understanding, this level of understanding of myself. I feel like I would be somewhere making money, not exploring who I am, or drunk as fuck or high as fuck, feeling guilty for pushing that part of myself away. I like to believe that I get the degree, I leave and never use it, but I needed money too many different times with some degree requiring situation put right in front of me. And I just recognized that I didn't have the option when it was presented to me. And it's the best thing that could ever happen for me. Years before I learned that all my favorite people dropped out of college. I like to believe that I'm in amazing company.
Wow. Sorry, Cody, you can eat in a couple minutes.
You smashing.
All right. So we talked about problems, we talked about solution, mistakes. You started hinting at lessons learned.
Right, the lessons learned. Like, what would I tell somebody to get them here quicker? It's just asking the who am I question early, and recognizing that the who am I question is the artist or creative journey earlier than I did. It's like read The Alchemist earlier than I did. Read The Power Now earlier than I did. Read The Creative Act, because The Creative Act is talking about the mindset of non-linear, creative, artistic people. So it's kind of like, oh, all of what you're thinking, all of what you're wondering, all of what you're trying to figure out, all of what you can't figure out is normal, is regular. Motherfuckers writing books on this shit, you know?
Yeah. Do you think that this might be a silly question, but I'm just curious. Do you think that Venn diagram or the sort of who am I chart, do you think that is helpful? And if so, like, why should people, if you've ever done it, you draw a circle in the middle, who am I, and then the branches, what's your thoughts on that exercise? Is that something that you should pay attention to and like really?
Well, when I asked myself the question of who am I created a diagram and I wrote all this stuff with how I saw myself. And that was at the early stages of me unlocking the whole idea of who am I? It's a question that, was kind of whispering in the back of my head for years before I ever wrote it down. Me bringing it into like physical existence was extremely helpful.
What'd you do? You just kind of studied it, looked at it, referred back to it?
No, I wrote it out and probably didn't look at it for years and felt like I was more confused about who I was now that I wrote down all this shit that technically wasn't who I was, but it was ultimately a list of what I do, how people see me, what people think of me. It confused me more because I had this piece of paper with all of this shit written on it. And when I was looking at each individual thing on this list, none of them seemed to be who I was.
So does your who am I graphic look completely different now from that one?
Yep. My who am I graphic looks extremely different from the first one I wrote. It's a whole different list. And I'm not sure that the new list that I made is who I am. I think the list is all of the things that are associated with me. The idea that I am a spirit inside of a physical body seems to be the answer of who I am. I am the being that's inside of this body, living this experience with all these identifiers surrounding me. And if I had to say and just answer simply who I am, I'm an artist. Because that seems to be what encompasses both of my lists that span about 15 years apart. Whether that's right or wrong, you know what I'm saying? It's like that's where the list got shorter. I'm me. I am not the labels or the identifiers that represent me. I'm separate from the representation.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's deep.
I ain't none of this stuff. I ain't none of this shit. I ain't none of the labels. That's not who I am.
Get that deep. Spirit in the being of the body.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that we didn't go through? Since this is going to be the second newsletter, right? Do you want to say just briefly what is Uncut? Oh no, we already said what is.
Yeah, we said what Uncut Art School is, and I think the only thing that we kind of touching on it, we're gonna unpack it. Just this whole idea of surviving and financial survival. Let's talk a little bit about what people are asking me, what I'm learning in these conversations and assessments that I've been having for the last couple of weeks, because those shits
learning about yourself or learning about people.
Learning about people, because I'm assessing as I'm in conversation with creative folks.
It's more than you learning that people want validation and compliments.
Yeah, validation is just one of them. You know what I'm saying?
What else are you learning?
I'm learning that people seem to be caught in a loop of saying and repeating and rehearsing, almost like just very unhelpful, counterproductive things. The excuses that people make are a huge part of their loop. Justifications are a huge part of the loop. Because when I'm listening to it, I'm really listening. And to say that a lot of these people I've been in multiple conversations with, years worth of conversations, and it's like, this motherfucker's saying the same exact shit that they said last time. I start wondering if it's drug related. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. What has this person on this robotic loop? And then they say that there's some things that they want, and the things that they want are so lofty. Mm-hmm. They're so huge. It's easy to see that how the fuck do you attain that? People aren't like on the ground level with themselves saying, this is the next thing that I want. This is my next goal. People sitting there stuck on a dream versus actual goals that come with actual steps that turn into a plan that produce outcomes that you grow from. So is that. And I think people have a misperception of what an artist is and what an artist does and what it takes to be an artist. And people seem to have a hard time stripping money away from the concept of making art. So like, that's a concern. I can't do this because I won't make money. And it's been hard to get people to hear that by doing this, you'll make money, because you can make money doing anything. Yeah. But if you want to make money being or becoming yourself, you got to become yourself in order to make the money. It's a lot of hustling, a lot of gimmicks. It's a landscape full of people hustling and pimping their creativity, which also is making it hard and confusing for somebody to figure out what they're doing wrong. Just because you got a creative tool or creative instrument and you making money, that don't really make you an artist. It just makes you a freelance robot. You know what I'm saying? That's some shit that the Dan Co would say, because he talk about the freelancers. The freelancer is the new 9 to 5. You're still caught in the same loop. You're still doing this in a way that isn't fulfilling, where it's too much time and not enough money, not enough freedom, not enough creativity. You just taking yourself through it versus having some company take you through it. Wow. Right. Wow. I don't know. I mean,
no, that was good, my love.
I think we hit on all of it.
Good newsletter.
What art school don't teach. And then we just keep going. And it was something that I wanted to say to you about distractions. Oh, I want to have a conversation at some point about not having a cell phone in reference to the no distractions conversation. Mm-hmm. Just because that's just a good ass conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay.
So we good?
Yeah, we're good.
Peace out.
That was great. Keep that.